I grew up in Brooklyn, and you know what that's all about, since you did too. And I grew up in a neighborhood where nobody was Protestant. Everybody was either Jewish or Italian Catholic or Irish Catholic. And truly, I was brought home from the hospital to a house with Neapolitan downstairs neighbors. And my father grew up in a house with Sicilian downstairs neighbors. So I always knew about the smell of Sunday gravy, as Italian Americans call it. And it's in my soul.
I lived on a block where there was a little chef who was holding a plate of pasta in the window. I think they were in pretty much all the Italian restaurants in Brooklyn at that time.
Well, we lived always with Italian neighbors, and in fact, so did many people growing up in Brooklyn. In fact, I have a recipe in Naples at Table. When I was talking about it on my radio program years and years ago, I got a recipe from a woman. I'm looking at this and I'm saying, you know what this is? This is Jewish brisket crossed with Neapolitan Genovese. You know, the women switched, talked about their recipes, how they cooked a pot roast. In any case, I say I was weaned on ziti with ragu.
But you've also written Jewish cookbooks.
Well, that is my heritage too. I guess I have two areas of interest.
So
actually, they overlap because my current area of interest, big time, is the Jews in southern Italy, which is an interesting subject.
Well, the Italian cooking in those days was really Southern Italian and Sicilian cooking. So is that when you developed your taste for that particular region?
Yes, because most of the emigration from Italy to the U.S., certainly to New York, and the East Coast cities of Philadelphia and Boston, was Southern Italian. In San Francisco on the West Coast, it's a different immigration. But here, most people came from the regions that are south of Rome: Campania, Puglia, Basilicata, Calabria, and Sicily. And Molise. I stuck Molise in as southern Italy also for various reasons, including I went to Campobasso, the main city, and asked people on the street, did they feel central or southern? Mm-hmm. And they said southern.
Now, are all of those regions, do they all have their own version of Italian food?
They do have, all of Italy is very regional, and the South is no different. However, and I love saying this because it really annoys people, there is no such thing as Northern Italian cuisine, because north of Rome, and Rome itself, was always divided into many different little countries, whereas the south of Italy was always the Kingdom of Naples, not always, but from 1200-something until 1861. So there's more uniformity between the various regional cuisines.
Although when I think of this, now I find out I can't say Northern Italian cuisine, I usually think of rice or polenta rather than pasta. I think of butter rather than olive oil.
And you'd be correct.
And I think when I think of the South, I think of tomatoes.
Yes. And all the New World ingredients that the Spanish brought to the Kingdom of Naples when they were discovering America in the early 1500s. Not just tomatoes, but potatoes, corn, chocolate, vanilla, squash. It's hard to imagine, but there was no squash in Europe until the early 1500s.
And Italian peppers.
And not just Italian peppers. Try to think of Thai cuisine without chilies. Until the 16th century, they didn't exist outside of Central and South America. So the hot peppers and the sweet peppers, and beans. All the beans except for chickpeas, lentils, and fava are from the New World. Yes, it is easier to get great ingredients in Italy, but you can find them if you look here. You have to be a very careful shopper. I don't eat Italian in Italian restaurants here very often because that never tastes right to me. But I can buy and cook at home the very simple food that's in the Southern Italian table. By the way, these are recipes I make every day. I'm making dinner for some friends tonight.
You didn't invite me over.
Well, come on.
Too late.
Too late. I'll have enough food, believe me. I'm making recipes that are in this book, except for one. I have some quince, and I baked quince this morning to have baked quince for dessert. But these are things that I make every day, and these are not recipes for company. Oh, there are a couple of company things in there, but even those are sort of easy. I always say Southern Italians are too busy enjoying other aspects of life, other pleasures of life, to want to spend all day in the kitchen. And they want to eat well, but they don't want to cook all day.
And if you want to have an idea of what Arthur's talking about, as I said earlier, we posted some of the recipes from this book on our show page. The book itself, of course, is more than just a bunch of recipes. It's Arthur's text and gorgeous photographs from Alan Richardson.
Alan Richardson's photographs really bring the subject to life.
My stomach is absolutely talking as a result of looking through this book, which is called The Southern... It's talking Italian, by the way. The Southern Italian Table, Authentic Tastes from Traditional Kitchens. It's published by Clarkson Potter. And Arthur Schwartz, it's always a pleasure to talk with you.
Next time, next week. Come for dinner next week, Leonard.